everyone. My name's Trish. I belong to the Annalee branch for Labor in Queensland, and welcome to our podcast, Speak Out. With me today is Sasha Marin and Rod Beisel, who are very active members in our branch. Welcome, Sasha. Welcome, Rod.
Thank you.
Thanks, Trish.
One of the things that is of interest to me, and I think to a lot of people in the branch and elsewhere, is the upcoming Queensland election. There's a lot of activity happening, and there's a lot of people working hard in our branch and other branches. Sasha, you've been doing this for a long time. You're very experienced in campaigning through elections. Tell me, what's at stake in this current election for you?
I guess for me, what's at stake is something that's the same thing across, the thing that's at stake for me is the same thing that would be at stake for every person that lives in this state, right? And that is this, is that we are really fortunate to have a fantastic Premier, Anastasia Palaszczuk, and a fantastic Labor team who made the really difficult decision to keep Queensland safe and shut our borders when it was required to do so, right? And on that basis, they have kept us, they've made really good decisions based on the health of all Queenslanders, regardless of their age and background, right? They are keeping us safe. And part of that has meant that they are now able to start our economic recovery, right? And doing that in Queensland possibly earlier than in other states. And I guess that's a difficult decision for a team to make. There's been a lot of criticism from the opposition and from the federal LNP about what Team Palaszczuk are doing. But for me, I guess we have an opposition that has no plan. We have an opposition that doesn't care about whether or not Queenslanders stay safe and healthy. And remember, this is the same opposition that when they were elected in 2012, went ahead and sacked a whole bunch of public servants. They cut frontline services. They wanted to privatise our public services. And I guess for me, that's what's at stake. And that doesn't just apply to me as an individual, it applies to every Queenslander living in this state.
And I think that's a great summary, Sasha, of things that have been happening in the last couple of years, and certainly this year, 2020, which has been fraught with challenges for every level of government. Rod, are you feeling the same things? Are you experiencing the same things as Sasha and hearing from the branch around these sorts of issues as well?
Well, Trish, I mean, I can certainly back up what Sasha is saying, you know, in terms of just talking to the ordinary voter on the street. I mean, we've been out on the campaign trail now, you know, for a couple of months, ever since the BCC elections. And certainly I think, you know, the Queenslanders I speak to on the street, you know, are sort of, you know, they're wanting stable government. They're you know, they're happy with the way that the current government is managing this pandemic. They see the LNP divided. You've got to remember, you know, there's a lot of infighting going on in the LNP. There are extremist elements that have crept into the LNP, and that's causing a lot of trouble amongst their rank and file. And that's seeping through to the public. You know, there's a lot of people that are aware about this is an LNP that really hasn't apologised for what it did in its time in government when it got elected in 2012. They haven't apologised for anything that they did where they cut, sacked and sold assets. And, you know, not only that, let's go back to the fact that, you know, when we think about it, we've got a current leader of the LNP that, you know, was keen for the borders to open. So people are worried about the alternative. They see Anastasia Palaszczuk as stable and strong. And I think that's going to be a defining difference between the two parties as we go into this election.
Oh, yes, go, Sasha.
Oh, I was going to add to that, like in terms of our economic recovery plan, I guess from, you know, the Labor perspective and the Palaszczuk government, they actually have a very clear plan in terms of our economic recovery. And it's, you know, It's about making sure that we are supporting small business by buying local. So, you know, get out there and support your local businesses. It's about bringing infrastructure forward so that we are creating jobs. And it's also about trying to make it in Queensland and bring manufacturing back to Queensland. So that is all about creating jobs for Queenslanders to bring us out of this economic recovery.
And I would agree with you, Sasha, that these are some fantastic policies coming through. They don't always cut through mainstream media, but certainly on social media, I think people would be getting bibs and bobs from those policy announcements. And I understand that last week there was a megaphone bank activity which reached out to an unbelievable number of people, around 15,000 or more across the state. And I understand you were part of that, Sasha. What were you hearing from people? What did we hear directly from people? Are they in the same frame of mind as you? Do they have some other ideas they want put forward? Give us a bit of a summary of what your experience was last week.
So in my experience, they are absolutely in the same frame of mind as me. They are worried about, they're especially worried about the borders. Like most of the people that we talked to and the feedback that I got and the people that I spoke to myself said that they were really pleased with the way that the Palaszczuk government had handled the borders. They were not comfortable with the borders opening, and they were a lot of them were concerned about, you know, what would happen in terms of our economy, and they were very pleased to hear that Anastasia Palaszczuk and her team have an economic recovery plan. People don't know who the LNP are. They don't know who Deb Frecklington is. People who do know her have said that they were concerned because she asked for the border to be open 64 times. At the moment, I'm not sure what she thinks about whether or not the border should be closed or not. And I guess that's a concern to people.
Yes, I would agree. I think there is more confusion in terms of the LNP's policies. And Rod, you've been hitting the pavement in Annalee with other branch members. Are you hearing the same thing on the ground when you go out on weekends to talk to folk?
Yeah, certainly. The feeling on the ground is definitely the same. I mean, people are happy with the government's response to COVID. You know, people understand that the government does have a plan, and you know, nobody's keen on opening up the borders. They support the Premier. They understand why the Premier is making this call. I mean, she's basing it on, you know, the advice of health experts. We don't need Southern media. We don't need federal coalition politicians telling us to, you know, to open up our borders and put Queenslanders' lives at risk. So I think it's really cut through to a lot of people. And that's why this campaign's just important to keep talking about the fact that Labor does have a plan and we haven't seen anything of substance from the other side.
Yes, I've been hearing that too. And I guess we have a few more weeks to go, don't we? So, Sasha, what else is coming up in the next couple of weeks? And what, in your heart of hearts, would you like other branch members to be doing to support what you and Rod are doing, and to dive in wherever they can in balancing their own work and life, to support the campaign in the next couple of weeks and months?
It's been an interesting campaign, Trish, as you know, and Rod would know yourselves, because the first part of the campaign, we were pretty limited in what we could do. Like, we weren't able to do any face-to-face campaigning, and I think it was only at the end of June where we could go out and actually, you know, do some street activity in terms of visibility. Again, there's limited contact in that. And we did start door knocking, which was very successful, but unfortunately we've had to pull that back a little bit, particularly on the south side of Brisbane because of the COVID-19 clusters. But I think in terms of campaigning, having a conversation with someone is probably the most powerful way that you can discuss politics and move or persuade the way someone is thinking of voting. And what we try to do in all of our campaigns is to identify those people who are undecided and then talk to them about our, policies. And when I say policies, it's not a discussion around a policy in terms of this is our policy. What it is, it's a discussion with a human being about why you are voting Labor, right? So it would be a conversation with me, Sasha Marin, talking to you, Trish, on a very personal level about why I am voting Labor this time, right? So it's not a conversation about policy that's sort of a, artificial or it's quite of a bit of a deeper level of discussion, and people kind of, people pull away, I think, a little bit when they hear Labor campaigners talking about phone banking, because they think, oh God, I'm going to have to know all these things. But actually, you don't have to know anything. All you have to know is how to have a conversation with someone around why you are voting Labor personally. And that's incredibly powerful, because what it means for the person on the other side is they can then relate to you and kind of go, okay, right, well, it isn't, it's very personal. Sorry, I keep saying that it's very personal, but when things are very personal, it means that people understand it and they relate to it a bit strongly than if it was just a very artificial sort of conversation. So I think that is very important. It's we're not door knocking at the moment, so unfortunately we can't go out and door knock and have those conversations. But I know that our local campaigns in South Brisbane and in Miller, particularly in South Brisbane, are having lots of phone banks where they are trying to reach those really crucial undecided voters who haven't made up their mind yet as to how they're voting. And for people who aren't comfortable talking to other people, that's, there are options for them as well. So we're doing a day of action across the state again to get out, put on their red shirts and either, do some high vis to build that momentum, because, the official campaign period will be at the beginning of October. So we want to get volunteers out and get them ready for that. Hopefully by then we may be able to do some door knocking as well. But the other thing is that people will need assistance for postal votes. Do you want me to stop, Trish? Because I can keep going. But
we are running out of time, but I think you've given people...
Yeah, there's lots of stuff to do. But the main thing is people should get in touch with their local campaign and just say, what can I do?
I think that's good information for people, and gave some good detail there about how they can make it work for themselves. I know for myself, I do work full time and I can do Saturday mornings sometimes, and I've got caring responsibilities. So wouldn't you say that's true, Rod? It's just about finding where you've got the energy, how you balance your work life, because I know you do a lot of work as well, but you also work full time. And would you agree with me that that's what people can just have conversations at work sometimes?
Oh, look, absolutely. I mean, we all know somebody else, and I think it's just, where we can talk to somebody, particularly if they initiate the conversation, or, everything's topical at the moment, particularly about COVID and, the government's response. But I just think, look, everybody can do something. I don't want anyone to think that, look, I can't do something, I wouldn't be any good at it or whatever. I just think that, people just need to, give it a bit of a go. And look, even if you're not too sure, there's activities that you can be buddied up with and learn off other people and what they do. But I just think, look, if people can just devote a little bit of time between now and October 30, it'll be really worthwhile.
Well, thanks, Rod. Thanks, Sasha. I think that gives people a bit of options, a few options to think about in terms of just 1 hour every 2 weeks in any activity that sounds interesting to them. And certainly just give us a call, follow up through the emails or texts that are provided to our branch members. And I think you'd agree with me that we'd love our colleagues in our branch to get involved, and they'll hear more in the coming months about what's possible to receive training and coaching and support so that in our own community within the branch, we can make a difference in our local area. So thank you both for being involved today in our podcast, and we'll be talking with you soon. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Trish.
Thanks, Trish.